At least one child isn't a disappointment, Dad announced, hugging my sister. I opened my phone, showed them my bank balance, $47 million. Happy birthday, here's my gift. The truth was, the restaurant's private dining room felt suffocating despite its high ceilings and elegant decor. My father's 60th birthday celebration was in full swing. Crystal glasses clinking as relatives shared stories about his successful law career. I sat quietly at the corner of the long table picking up my overpriced steak, trying to become invisible, a skill I perfected over the years. And here's to my daughter, Emma, Dad announced, raising his glass. Recently made partner at Anderson & Mitchell. Following in her old man's footsteps, my sister stood up, basking in the approval that radiated from every corner of the room. Her designer dress probably cost more than what most people thought I made in a month. She always been the golden child, the one who did everything right. Prestigious law school, perfect marriage, right connections. Thanks, Daddy, she beamed. I learned from the best. I took another sip of wine, remembering all the times I'd heard, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" Growing up, every decision I made that didn't align with their planned path was met with disappointment. Engineering school instead of law school. Starting my own tech company instead of joining a firm. Living modestly instead of flaunting wealth. And then there's Sophie, my mother added with a tight smile. Still doing her, what do you call it, dear? Computer thing? Artificial intelligence development, I corrected quietly. My company specializes in AI solutions for yes, Dad waved his hand dismissively, playing with computers. At least one of my children understood the value of a real career. The familiar sting of his words burned, but I forced myself to maintain a neutral expression. If only they knew that my computer thing had revolutionized multiple industries, that the modest office they mocked as a hobby shop was just a front for my real operations. Did you hear about Emma's new house in the Hamptons? Mom gushed to anyone who would listen. 5 bedrooms, private beach access. It's nothing really, Emma said with false modesty. Just a little weekend getaway. Though, Sophie, if you ever need a break from your startup, you're welcome to visit. When we're not there, of course. More polite laughter. I thought about my own properties. The penthouse in Manhattan, the villa in Tuscany, the private island in the Pacific, all carefully hidden under various LLC names, their ownership obscured by layers of corporate privacy protection. A toast, my Uncle Robert stood up, glass in hand, to James Morrison, who raised one hell of a successful daughter. And Sophie, my aunt added, clearly feeling obligated. She's trying her best. I watched my father's face. There it was, that slight grimace he always got when someone mentioned me, as if my very existence was a disappointment he had to endure. Well, he said, straightening his tie, at least one of my children isn't a disappointment. Emma understood what it means to build a real career, to create a legacy. She's made the Morrison name mean something in the legal world. The room fell awkwardly silent. Even by his standards, this was harsh. James, my mother whispered, maybe that's a bit. No, Margaret, it needs to be said. He turned to face me directly. Sophie, you had every advantage. The best schools, every opportunity. And what do? Waste it all playing entrepreneur in some tiny office downtown. Do you know what people say? They ask me what went wrong with my other daughter. I set down my wine glass, the crystal making a soft clink against the tablecloth. What went wrong? My voice was quieter than I intended, but it carried across the sudden silence. Yes, what went wrong? While your sister is closing multi-million-dollar deals, you're what? Writing computer code in a basement? I thought about the contract sitting on my desk back at the office, about the revolutionary AI system my company had developed, the one that was about to transform global finance, about the acquisition offers from tech giants that I'd turned down because the numbers, 9 figures each, weren't high enough. Dad, Emma said, trying to play peacemaker. Sophie's doing fine. I mean, she's independent at least. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real corporate success. That was Emma, always managing to sound supportive while twisting the knife deeper. Independent? Dad scoffed. Is that what we're calling failure now? When I was her age, I was already making waves in the legal world. Your sister was already on track to partner. But Sophie, she's 35 with nothing to show for it except some delusional dream of being the next Steve Jobs. I pulled out my phone, fingers hovering over the banking app. For years, I kept my success hidden, partly because I enjoyed my privacy, partly because I was waiting for the right moment. Watching my father pontificate about success while my sister smirked, I realized this was that moment. You want to talk about success, Dad? I opened the app, navigating to my main account. About legacy, about what the Morrison name means. Sophie, my mother warned, don't make a scene. It's your father's birthday. Yes, it is. I stood up slowly, and I think it's time he got his gift. The truth? We don't need another one of your homemade computer programs, Emma said with a condescending smile, though I'm sure it's very creative. I turned my phone around, displaying the screen for everyone to see. My account balance glowed clearly, $47,282,465.19, and that was just one of my accounts. The room went completely still. I heard a glass shatter somewhere to my left. That's my father's voice cracked. That's impossible. Is it? I pulled up another screen. My company's latest valuation report. Morrison Technologies, have you probably know it better as Mount Solutions, the AI company that's been making headlines for revolutionizing financial technology, currently valued at just over $4 billion. Emma's perfectly maintained composure cracked. Empty Solutions. But they're the ones who just turned down acquisition offers from Google and Microsoft. Turned them down because they were insultingly low. I smiled, enjoying the way my father's face had lost all color. Would you like to see those offers, Dad? They're quite impressive, though not as impressive as what your failure daughter has built on her own. You're lying, he stammered. This is some kind of trick. I pulled up the company's public filings. Check for yourself. Though you won't find my name easily, I value my privacy. The same privacy that let me build an empire while you were all too busy mocking my computer thing to notice. My mother had sunk into her chair, her social smile completely gone. Emma was frantically Googling on her phone, her hands shaking slightly as headlines about Empty Solutions filled her screen. $4 billion, I continued calmly. That's what your disappointment daughter's company is worth. That tiny office downtown, it's just for show. Our real headquarters takes up 3 floors in the Sterling Tower. You know, that building Emma keeps bragging about wanting to get her firm into. I own it. The silence was absolute now. Every relative who had smirked at my supposed failures sat frozen, glasses halfway to their lips. But why didn't you tell us? My mother finally managed to tell you. I laughed softly. When have you ever wanted to hear about my work? When have any of you shown even the slightest interest in understanding what I do? I turned to my father, whose birthday celebration had taken a turn he never expected. You wanted to talk about legacy, Dad? About making a Morrison name mean something? Well, in the tech world, in the real centers of power and innovation, Morrison means something, just not because of you. The aftermath of my revelation was exactly what you'd expect from a family that had based their entire hierarchy on perceived success. The expensive wine sat forgotten, condensation beating on crystal glasses as everyone tried to process what they just learned. Emma recovered first, her legal training kicking in. Empty Solutions. They're the ones who developed the AI trading system. The one that's being implemented by major banks worldwide. She looked at me with new eyes, reassessing everything she thought she knew about her little sister. Among other things, I said, taking my seat again. Our healthcare and division is quite promising too. We're revolutionizing diagnostic procedures in ways that will save millions of lives. But my father was still struggling to form complete sentences. The Sterling Tower, that's a $300 million property, was a $300 million property, I corrected. Worth considerably more now after the renovations. Would you like to see the deed? My mother's social instincts finally kicked in. She reached for my hand across the table, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Darling, this is wonderful. Why didn't you tell us? We could have helped made introductions. I pulled my hand away. Made introductions, like when he told the Hamiltons not to waste their time investing in my hobby, or when Dad warned his clients to stay away from my amateur operation. The color drained from her face as she remembered. 3 years ago, the Hamiltons had been interested in early-stage investment. My parents had convinced them I wasn't worth the risk. We were trying to protect them. My father defended weakly and you from inevitable failure. Protect them? I laughed. Those who did invest in my inevitable failure saw their investment multiply by 800% in 18 months. The Hamiltons recently tried to buy shares at current market value. I turned them down. Uncle Robert leaned forward, his earlier dismissiveness replaced by keen interest. Sophie, about my son's tech startup. No. I cut him off firmly. I'm not interested in investment opportunities from family. Not anymore. But we're family, Emma protested. Surely, that counts for something. I turned to her, remembering all the time she lorded her success over me. Does it? Like when you convinced the partners at Anderson and Machon not to consider my company's software proposal, looking out for their best interest, I believe you called it. She had the grace to look embarrassed. That proposal rejected due to her interference had gone to their competitors instead. The same competitors who were now dominating the legal tech sector using my company's systems. I didn't know, she whispered. No, you didn't. None of you knew because none of you cared to know. I stood up again, dropping my napkin on the table. You were also convinced you knew what success looked like. A corner office, a partnership, a house in the Hamptons. You never considered that real innovation, real world-changing success might look different. Sit down, my father commanded, finding his authoritative voice again. We need to discuss this as a family. Your company. These opportunities. Opportunities? I raised an eyebrow. You mean, now that you know I'm worth billions, suddenly my computer thing is worth discussing? Don't be difficult, Sophie, my mother pleaded. Your father's just trying to understand. We all are. It's a lot to take in. I looked around the table at my assembled family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all who had spent years pitying poor Sophie while praising Emma's conventional success. Now they stared at me with naked calculation in their eyes, mentally revising every interaction we'd ever had. You know what the funny thing is? I said, picking up my purse. I used to dream about this moment, about showing you all what I built, proving you wrong. But standing here now, I realize something. Your approval stopped mattering a long time ago. Sophie, please. Emma stood up. Let's talk about this. Maybe there are synergies between our firms. Synergies? I couldn't help but laugh. You mean now that you know who I am, you want to explore business opportunities? What happened to my amateur operation? My father pushed his chair back abruptly. Enough. I won't have you ruining my birthday with this spectacle. If you've built something successful, good for you. But your attitude? My attitude? I cut him off, my voice sharp. You mean like your attitude 5 minutes ago when you called me a failure in front of our entire family? Or your attitude the past 7 years when you couldn't even be bothered to visit my office? He fell silent. And in that silence, I saw something I'd never seen before. Uncertainty. For the first time in my life, my father wasn't sure he was right. I pulled an envelope from my purse and placed it on the table. Happy birthday, Dad. Inside, you'll find something interesting. The D to your law firm's building. Empty Solutions bought it last month through a subsidiary. Consider this notice. Your rent is doubling next quarter. Market rates, you understand. The room erupted in chaos. My mother gasped. Emma started frantically typing on her phone, probably trying to verify what I just said. My father just stared at the envelope like it might bite him. You can't do this. He finally managed. Actually, I can. Just good business sense. Isn't that what you always taught me? I smiled. Don't worry. I'm not being vindictive. You're welcome to stay at the new rate, or you can move to one of the many other buildings in the city. Though I paused for effect, you might want to check who owns those first. I turned to leave, but Emma caught my arm. Wait, at least let me take you to lunch next week to talk about things. Sister to sister. I gently removed her hand. I'm afraid I'm busy next week. I'm finalizing the acquisition of Anderson and Mitchell's largest client. You know, the one whose AI contract you convinced them to reject. I washed her face pale. Don't worry. I'm sure the partners will understand. After all, it's just business. Sophie, my mother called out as I reached the door. What do you want from us? I paused, considering the question. For years, what I wanted was your approval, your understanding, your support. Now I don't want anything from you. That's the beauty of success. It shows you what really matters and what doesn't. As I walked out of the private dining room, I heard the chaos erupting behind me. My phone started buzzing immediately. First, Emma, then my mother, then a string of messages from relatives who suddenly remembered my existence. I stepped into my waiting car, nodding to James, my driver. The office, please. Everything okay, Miss Morrison? He asked, noting my expression in the rearview mirror. Better than okay, I replied, watching the restaurant disappear behind us. Just finished giving my father his birthday gift. The truth. Back at my real office, the top floor of Sterling Tower with its sweeping city views, I sat at my desk and finally looked at the messages flooding my phone. Mom, please call us. We need to talk about this as a family. Emma, this is crazy. Let me explain about Anderson and Mitchell. Dad, your behavior tonight was unacceptable. Call me immediately. Uncle Robert, about that startup investment. I deleted them all and opened my email where my team had sent the latest acquisition reports. Mount Solutions was about to announce another technological breakthrough, one that would reshape the industry yet again. My net worth would likely double by year's end. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. My assistant, Sarah, entered with a concerned look. Your sister, Emma, is in the lobby. Says she won't leave until you see her. I glanced at the security feed on my computer. There she was, still in her designer dress from dinner, looking decidedly less polished now. Tell her my schedule is full, I said, turning back to my work, but she's welcome to make an appointment through proper channels, of course. Sarah nodded and left. On my screen, I watched Emma receive the message, saw her face contour in frustration before she finally left. Looking out over the city skyline, I thought about success and failure, about approval and validation. For years, I've let their narrow definition of success make me feel small. Now I realize true success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. I opened my phone one last time and sent a single group text to my family. Thank you for teaching me that failure is in the eye of the beholder. Rest assured, Your rent increase is nothing personal. Just good business sense like you always taught me. By the way, Emma, your firm's biggest client sends their regards. They're very excited about implementing Mount Solutions' new legal AI platform through your competitors. Then I turned off my phone, picked up the latest project proposal, and got back to work. After all, empires aren't built by waiting for family approval. They're built by those willing to be underestimated, and I have been underestimated for the very last time.